Hi everyone. I'm going to do quick notes on nucleic acids, which is our final category of organic molecules. And again, we're going to have a whole unit on nucleic acids, which are DNA and RNA, later. So I'm just doing a quick overview of their structure. Again, I'm going to go kind of fast. You can pause and take notes whenever you need, but I'll just make the recording shorter, as short as I can. So first thing, the two types of nucleic acids is DNA, which stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. It's the DNA. And ribonucleic acid, which is the RNA. And nucleic acids are long polymers, just like a lot of our big organic molecules, consisting of the smaller monomers called nucleotides. So just like proteins were made of amino acids put together, nucleic acids are made of nucleotides put together. And you can see here on the picture, this is a DNA nucleotide. Here's the heading, and this is an RNA nucleotide. The sugar that's in these, we already did this when we did our carbohydrate unit, but the sugar is a pentose, which means it has 5 carbons. So you can see here we have deoxyribose, and here's carbon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's your 5 carbons in deoxyribose, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carbons in ribose. Again, remember I told you don't need to know the difference structurally between the two. It's just in this red box. But they're both 5 carbon sugars. This one's in DNA. This one's in RNA. So let's look at a nucleotide. What are the 3 parts of a nucleotide? And then it tells you to label them on the picture below. So here's what you fill in on your notes there in the 3 blanks. What are for number 4? So the 3 parts of a nucleotide: a 5 carbon sugar. That's what the C stands for, just in case you don't know. A 5 carbon sugar, either deoxyribose or ribose. A phosphate group, which is the same kind of thing we learned when we talked about a phospholipid. That's a phosphate group. And a base that we call it a nitrogen base, because you can see here here's the nitrogen base. It has nitrogen in the structure, so we call it a nitrogen base. And there are 5 different nitrogen bases that could be in a nucleotide, and we'll learn these when we do DNA and RNA. But DNA has A, G, C, and T as the possible things that could be here, and RNA has A, G, C, and U, and we'll go over that later. Right now, so the 3 parts of the nucleotide, you can see here's our 5 carbon sugar right there. Again, that's either deoxyribose or ribose, depending on if we're looking at a nucleotide of DNA or RNA. And then we have a sugar phosphate base. I like to say quick, sugar phosphate base. Those are the 3 parts of a nucleotide: a 5 carbon sugar, a phosphate group, and a nitrogen base that could either be, these all have long names: adenine, guanine, cytosine. A nitrogen base. So you have to label, fill in these labels here: 5 carbon sugar, nitrogen base, phosphate group. Then number 6 tells you to draw a nucleotide. I'm not going to have you draw a nucleotide, just because there's one right there on the picture. Let me just switch over to the notes here. So for this part of the notes, where it says draw a nucleotide, just of DNA and RNA, let's just go, there they are, all right? Just draw an arrow here. This is a DNA nucleotide. You can see it's got the sugar phosphate base. Deoxyribose is the sugar. Again, they're just kind of showing the base here as like a little square instead of showing its real molecular structure. But so sugar phosphate base, deoxyribose. And then we have over here an RNA nucleotide, which is a sugar phosphate base, but the sugar is ribose. Okay, so that's a DNA nucleotide and an RNA nucleotide. Only difference being they have a different sugar. Okay, so you don't need to draw those. So a couple things I just want to look at here. So the base, I mentioned the base in DNA, you don't have to know pyrimidines and purines yet, but the base in a DNA nucleotide could either be something we call thymine, adenine, guanine, cytosine. You don't need to write those full names, but we just abbreviate them, TA and G and C. And we're going to see that DNA, then we link these nucleotides together into two strands that come together to form sort of a ladder structure. And we'll see that these nitrogen bases in the middle, these end up being, this is the actual genetic code of a gene. Okay, so it's the order of these four different nitrogen bases in your DNA that code for brown eyes or whatever trait we're talking about in the DNA. And then you can see in RNA, again, RNA has the base can be four different bases. And you can see it's the A, G, and C are the same, but it has a base called uracil, which we use a U instead of T. So it's one different thing. And we'll get more into that when we do a whole unit on that. But you can see if I link together nucleotides, RNA nucleotides, it's just a single strand of nucleotides, whereas DNA is double-stranded. And we'll get more into that later. So let's just write down, I might just have you write a couple notes right here. So DNA is a double strand of nucleotides. Right, so you can see kind of there. So this is a nucleotide here, sugar phosphate base, sugar phosphate base, sugar phosphate base. Let me make it a little bigger. Sugar phosphate base, and then there's another strand over here going the other direction. You'll notice it's kind of upside down. We'll get to that later. So there's two strands of, there's actually 8 nucleotides in that picture, 4 on each side. It's a double strand of nucleotides. And whereas RNA, sugar phosphate base, sugar phosphate, is a single strand of nucleotides. And remember, they're combined by condensation reactions, right? So just like anything else, right? A water molecule came out there when we put that, a condensation reaction occurred. Another water molecule came out there. Another water molecule came out there. So all the organic molecules we've looked at, when you're putting the smaller building blocks together by condensation, remember a water molecule comes out. So over here there would have been 1, 2, 3, 6 water molecules. Okay. So all of that, let's just kind of fill this in. So below, this is kind of a better picture of DNA, a little bigger, a little up close. It says how many chains of nucleotides are in one DNA molecule. It's 2. I numbered them down there. Okay. And I could do the same thing here I just did on the picture. I could do it in a different color. We have a sugar phosphate base. That's one nucleotide, sugar phosphate base, sugar phosphate base, sugar phosphate, whatever, you get the idea, I think. And then I have the same thing on the other side. So these are all the nucleotide strands, 2 strands of nucleotides, okay, that were linked together. And they kind of face in such a way that we'll see that this later, the nitrogen bases face the middle and kind of make steps. It kind of looks like a ladder. And then the 3D structure of this is something that we call a double helix, that DNA looks like. I think everybody has seen this. This is what we call a double helix. Okay, so this will twist into that. So how many nucleotides do you see in this picture? I just did them all in orange. So there's 6 here and 6 nucleotides here. And then they just kind of pair together in a ladder. Condensation put them together, and that's called a double helix. That's about as far as we're going to go, just the structure of DNA and RNA. And real quick, you don't even have to fill anything, but we talked about this in class already. The functions of DNA. It contains the hereditary information, your genes that code for, we talked about this, Genes really code for the amino acid sequence of proteins in you, and that's responsible for all your traits. So DNA codes for your traits, but it really codes for proteins. We're going to see RNA helps DNA make proteins. Well, we're going to just leave it at that. So know the function of DNA and RNA, and the structure of DNA and RNA, and the structure of a nucleotide, which is the building block. And that is it for that.